Topping today's news, government and opposition members clash over accountability standards as they wrap up debate on the new Procurement Act. Some calling charges against former Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture a political witch hunt, while others say it is not, and the calendar of events for the 50th Independence celebrations officially released. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jcn Saunders. This is your Jcn Evening News. It's a pleasure to have you join us. Parliamentarians debated Wednesday and passed the Public Procurement Bill 2022 and a Public Finance Management Bill 2023 in the lower chamber. The passage of replacement legislation, according to Minister of Finance, Prime Minister Philip Davis, is needed to fulfill promises made by the Davis administration of providing effective public financial management, efficient public procurement processes, and more transparency and fairness in governance. While he has heavily criticized the former administration's passing of the financial bill just before the 2021 general elections, Prime Minister Davis says there is no ulterior motive behind the decision to repeal and replace the Public Procurement Bill and the Public Finance Management Bill.
We can all agree that the role of government should be to broaden opportunities for a diverse range of behaviors. Our small and medium-sized businesses deserve opportunities too. The bill before us today allows for that possibility. And as someone reminded me, that the existing bill deprives a government of the opportunity to engage in what I call affirmative action. We are moving from that, and we will allow ourselves to engage in affirmative action and still remain transparent and accountable.
According to the Prime Minister, the new bill allows for preferential treatment of specific groups.
We will introduce preferences for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. We are going to introduce preferences for women-owned businesses. We are going to introduce preferences for family island businesses and youth-owned businesses. These are high priority areas we are targeting as a government to diversify opportunities in the Bahamas. And I think this point bears repeating. Under the current Act, the most well-established, well-resourced businesses were able to dominate government contracts under the guise of them being the best fit for the job. This sounds good on paper, but ignores the reality on the ground.
The Prime Minister says in the Public Procurement Bill 2021 passed by the Minnis administration, there was unequal granting of contracts as the process put in place created an environment in which large vendors were able to dominate the competition. The Prime Minister contends that under the new bill, women-owned businesses, micro, small, and medium-sized businesses will now have an opportunity, a Bahamas with opportunities for all. As for the debate regarding the new legislature, the government, public procurements, and related matters, as they were wrapping things up in the House of Assembly on Wednesday night, government and opposition members accused each other of not being transparent and accountable when it comes to the distribution of government contracts. We hear more on the heated back and forth in this next report by Cale Campbell.
Seeing as the matter would affect distribution of labor in the country, the Member of Parliament for Carmichael, Keith Bell, challenged decisions made by the former Prime Minister, Dr. Hubert Minnis, as it relates to questionable purchases made and contracts distributed. As yesterday's morning session of the House of Assembly debate waged on concerning fiscal legislature, the Minister of Labor and Immigration, Bell, quotes the nation's former leader, insinuating that the former Minnis administration never intended to follow through with the very legislature they passed.
When they wanted to purchase hundreds of thousands of dollars in all kinds of items, Persian rugs, mirrors, etc., and tens of millions of dollars, Madam Speaker, in contracts for projects, they saw no need They saw no need for accountability nor transparency. But here we are today, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I recall when asked about the issuance of these contracts, the member for Kalani stated to this House, many individuals would have to come to the Prime Minister's office stating that when they needed some form of contract for survival. He went on to say, and I have the document, I'm going to table it, Madam Speaker. These are individuals from Baintown, Centerville, all over, Madam Speaker. As a compassionate Prime Minister, I send those people, those individuals, to beaches and parks, and I tell them they must find something for them because we cannot have individuals.
In response, the Member of Parliament for Killarney, former Prime Minister Dr. Minnis, was unabashed in stating in the House of being unashamed in his decisions as Prime Minister, explaining that it is the government's duty to make sure the Bahamian people do not go without.
Circumstances were simple. There were a lot of individuals that needed help, especially during the pandemic. We had cut our budget. We recognized that a lot of those individuals would not have received help. We gave the chairman, the member for St. Barnabas, permission to rehire, issue the contracts to all these individuals. We recognize that you would run short of funding, but we will go back to Parliament that January to get the additional funds because we were not prepared to put individuals on the street who needed assistance when we as government, that is our responsibility. I did it then, and if it happened, I'd do it again.
Taking the former Prime Minister's admancy of good governance as an admission of bad policy, Minister Bell fired back, reiterating that the Bahamas is a country run by laws and legislature in order for the country's limited resources to be utilized effectively.
Entrust us, all of us, collectively, there's collective responsibility here to ensure that we protect the public purse. That is why we come in this honorable House to pass legislation. That is why we're here to deal with the Public Procurement and the Financial Management Act. And if we cannot say, Madam Speaker, that we have rules and regulations, and we come here to ensure that there is accountability, and here it is, from no other person than from the leader of Kalani, from the Member of Parliament for Kalani, the former Prime Minister and the leader of the government at the time, telling the public that he will not follow no law, the competent authority. He will do whatever he needs to do. There is laws in this country. There is laws in this country. And he said he could do it again, Madam Speaker.
While the former Prime Minister maintained that his intentions were to fulfill the government's duty in assisting its citizens, he added that his administration were not prepared to allow the people to be put on the streets and unable to feed themselves, to which Minister Bell asks about accounting of taxpayers' money, while rhetorically questioning the opposition's authority in holding the current administration accountable concerning public procurement.
Thanks for that report, Kale. While speaking during the budget debate for the 2022-2023 mid-year fiscal strategy report several weeks ago, Prime Minister Philip Davis accused the official opposition of purposefully sowing seeds of confusion in relation to the medium-term forecast, critiquing it as if it was the annual budget. As a result, Prime Minister Davis says the government has decided to make changes to the act as it relates to releasing the fiscal strategy report. Those amendments are included in the Public Finance Management Bill 2023, which was debated and passed on Wednesday. However, the opposition does not agree with those changes. We hear more in this next report. Earlier this year, after the official opposition took the government to task over numbers and projections in the mid-year fiscal strategy report, Prime Minister Philip Davis announced the decision to combine the release of the mid-year fiscal report with the annual budget and promised to amend the law to reflect this decision. At the time, Prime Minister Davis explained that the fiscal report that is due in November each year leaves out almost 10 months of data because its preparation is a long and tedious task. Well, that amendment is a part of the compendium of bills currently being debated by members of Parliament in relation to the Public Procurement Act. Opposition member for East Grand Bahama and Shadow Minister for Finance, Kwesi Thompson, says presenting the mid-year fiscal strategy report and the annual budget at the same time is a terrible idea.
Madam Speaker, we raised this point before with respect to the fiscal strategy report. You have now remove the fiscal strategy report and put it as a part of the budget. We had a discussion with the Ministry of Finance officials on this. And their point was, it is the time period in November is unworkable. Well, Madam Speaker, we don't have a difficulty with the time period, or you making the case that the time period is difficult, but do not put it in the process of the budget. Because the fiscal strategy report is a document that is supposed to guide the budget. Exactly. It is supposed to be a document that you look forward and you benchmark the budget to the fiscal strategy report. Yes, sir. So why put it in the same process as the budget?
Mr. Thompson argued that the mid-year fiscal strategy report should always come before the annual budget so that Ministry of Finance officials can have a blueprint to be able to process the budget and from which to make the budget. He says the mid-year fiscal report will become useless if it is included in the same process as the annual budget.
And what will end up happening, Madam Speaker, is it will get lost in the budget process. There are many bills that you put in the budget process because you don't want to talk about them. You just want to pass them. You don't want a separate debate about them. So you give it and you put it in the budget process. But Madam Speaker, the fiscal strategy report is so significant, it should not be a part of the budget process. And it is taking away the ability of the House to debate it. So why should we support taking away the ability of the elected members of Parliament and elected representatives, the ability to debate and discuss and recommend the way that we should be moving forward fiscally?
Meanwhile, while wrapping up debate on the mid-year budget, Prime Minister Philip Davis explained to the opposition that the distinction between the annual budget and the mid-year fiscal strategy report is very important because they go through two completely unique processes at different times of the year. The charges against former Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, Lanisha Rowe, her husband, and 3 contractors is just a political witch hunt. This coming from F&M Deputy Chairman and former Deputy House Speaker and former Member of Parliament for Tall Pines, Don Saunders. His comments come following Ms. Rowe's appearance in the Magistrates Court on Wednesday to answer to charges of fraud and bribery. Mr. Saunders, who is an attorney, says the contracts given out to the co-accused were for small amounts of money and the work that was supposed to be done was completed and proved.
And they're just trying, in my view, they're fishing, and they're trying to, and in the meantime, in the interim, they're intimidating people. And so we get this over and over and over again. We get calls over and over again, and I think the public there should be an outcry by the public. I understand. We're not the Free National Movement, and definitely myself as a officer of the court, where we understand the process, we understand what needs to be done. But we're just saying that it should be done in decency. It should be done in the legal, the way it should be done legally. And the police has a responsibility to every citizen, and to not intimidate.
On the other hand, attorney and deputy leader of the Coalition of Independents, Maria Daxon, disagrees with Mr. Saunders and said there is no political witch hunt. Ms. Daxon goes on to say that there is a lack of accountability, transparency, and good governance, and it is unacceptable that there is very little accounting for the taxpayers' money. She recommends there be a monthly public accounting of the government's spending to determine exactly where the money is going. And finally, in this segment, Minister of Social Services and Urban Development, Obie Wilchcombe, is speaking out regarding a missing pregnant teen girl who allegedly escaped from the Willie Mae Pratt Center for Girls last week Thursday around 10:30 a.m. Wilchcombe is questioning the circumstances surrounding the incident. He says officials are looking to tighten security.
Yeah, the details are such where you would understand it did not happen at Willie Mae Pratt. And so it leaves a question as to the entire procedure. When someone leaves the center for medical attention and what happens subsequent. So there are some things we have to look at. At all times you're thinking about and finding ways to strengthen. And the question of general security, more security on both campuses, whether it's Willie Mae Pratt or Simpson Penn, we are tightening security.
While the Social Services Minister acknowledged deficiencies in the security measures, he says this isolated incident does not determine the effectiveness of the authority that is currently in place. Now, just hours before the teen was captured by police, the mother spoke to Jcn on Tuesday night, begging for her daughter and unborn grandchild's safe return.
I just wanted to know I love her. Everybody love her. Everybody forgive her for every and anything she ever done. And I just wanted to know that even though she thought I was going to be mad, when they first found out she was pregnant, I was actually happy. And we actually wanted Carson. We actually wanted him. We actually wanted to take care of him.
Officers attached to Operation Ceasefire, acting on intelligence on Tuesday evening, located and apprehended the teen at a residence located in the area of Windsor Place, that is off Soldier Road. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.